So this is our project on coastal environments. So to start off, what is wave action? Wave action is when waves weather and erode the coast over a long period of time. Waves are generated when the surface of a body of water is disrupted by wind or other external forces. So wave action can erode rock forms, breaking them off the shore and weathering them into sand. Then waves can deposit the sand onto the shore and create beaches. Wave action can either reduce or build up a beach, and waves do that in two ways. The first way is through destructive waves. Destructive waves are large and frequent. The backwash carries more sand out to sea than there is material being deposited onto the beach. As you can see in this destructive wave, there's a large amplitude and a strong backwash, which means there's more sediment being carried out into the sea, so therefore the beach is reduced. The second type is constructive waves. Constructive waves build beaches up through accretion. These waves are low and carry lots of material onto the beach through its swash. As you can see in this type of constructive wave, the wavelength is greater and the amplitude is much smaller. Therefore, the waves carry more sediment onto the beach than they do drag sediment out into sea. So there are four landforms created by wave action, which are sea stacks, wave-cut cliffs, sea arches, and sea caves. Sea arches are created over a long period of time when waves gradually erode the rock on the coast. Water creates a hole in the rock and then turns into an arch over time. As the sea arch grows, a portion will eventually collapse, leaving a pillar of rock behind, such as this. This pillar of rock is called a sea stack. Sea caves are formed when waves start to erode a weak point in a large rock. This weak point will erode away and eventually the crack will expand and grow into a large cave found on the coast, which would be shown here in this diagram. Wave-cut cliffs are formed when the waves steadily erode the rock on the bottom of a slope on the coast. Over time, the upper section of the rock will protrude outwards towards the ocean, creating a cliff, and here would be an example of wave-cut cliff that's very pronounced here. So what is longshore drift? Longshore drift is the transportation of sediments down the beach face at an angle. Longshore drift is caused by the backwash of the waves pulling the sediment into the current and the swash of the waves pushing the sediment back onto the beach. As you can see here, the current would be moving this way, and the swash would put the sediment onto the beach. Backwash would carry it down, the current would carry it further along the beach, and it would go back like this, creating a sort of zigzag motion down the coast. So what landforms are created by deposition? Well, first of all, one landform created by coastal deposition are beaches. Beaches occur when waves break down a rock along the shore and sediment is deposited onto the coast by the sea. Another landform created by deposition is a spit. Spits are formed by longshore drift moving sediment along the coast. Where there is a decrease in the power of the waves, deposition occurs, creating a buildup of material in this area. A long ridge of material forms, which is called a spit, as you can see right here. A bar is another landform that is similar to a spit. A bar is formed when two spits join together. A bar looks like a line of material connecting one headland to another, as you can see here. It's basically just two spits joined together.
When does erosion occur in a coastline environment? Well, erosion occurs constantly in a coastline environment, as can be demonstrated in this video here. The water is eroding the cliffside here. Okay, so what type of erosion can occur in a coastline environment? The first type of erosion is hydraulic action. Hydraulic action occurs when the motion of water against a rock surface produces mechanical weathering. Most generally, it is the ability of moving water, flowing or waves, to dislodge and transport rock particles. Next is attrition. Attrition is a form of coastal erosion when the bed load is eroded by itself and the bed. Another form of coastal erosion is abrasion. Abrasion is the mechanical scraping of a rock surface by friction between rocks and moving particles during their transport by wind, glacier, waves, gravity, running water, or erosion. After friction, the moving particles dislodge loose and weak debris from the side of the rock. Corrosion is the final type of coastal erosion. Corrosion is the gradual destruction of materials, usually metals, by chemical reaction with its environment. Now, What causes deposition to occur on a coastline? It happens when water or waves are moving slow enough that the sediment in the water can no longer be suspended in the water. So as a result, the water drops the load of sediment. So, what landforms can be created by deposition? Deposition can create beaches, spits, and deltas. These are created when water no longer has enough force to carry the load of the sediment, and as a result it drops. Over an extensive period of time, this process will result in the three landforms stated previously. Now, what effects do these landforms have on the surrounding environment? High levels of water cause coastal homes to flood or slide into the water. Industrial and commercial facilities that are in low-lying areas are impaired or shut down, and beaches and marina docks get submerged. Coastal erosion damages wastewater collection systems, contaminates drinking water supplies, and it interferes with public power supplies. It can also endanger human lives.
Our case study is the Caribbean coastline. There are two resorts located along this coast. Similar cases can be found in many other tropical beach locations. Because of the erosion of the shoreline, the communities that are living near the beach must be wary of flooding. The erosion leaves a cliff hang at the low tide, which makes getting to the water very difficult and leaves the possibility for it to become treacherous if the cliff hang is too high or too slippery. The aquatic plant life that used to be able to survive and thrive closer to the inland is no longer able to live there because half of the day it's no longer submerged in water, which it was before. The surrounding communities have built protective barriers called retaining walls that are meant to keep the water that comes up at high tide at bay in case of a flood or extreme rain. Also, they have implemented bulkheads, which are basically a barrier between the waves and the shoreline that stops the wave action from eroding. The last thing that these communities are using is something called a groin. It is a structure built at a right angle to the shoreline that is meant to trap the excess sediment that is eroded away from the shoreline. This is the favorite tool used by communities along the coast nowadays because it not only stops the erosion, but anything that does manage to slip away is also caught by the groins.